Hello, welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, once again joined by Tim Martinez, coming to you from the First Pacific Financial Studio. And thank you to First Pacific Financial for all their support all year, letting us use the space, supporting the show, and supporting high school athletics, which reached a crescendo this past weekend with the spring state championships. And boy, Tim, we had a lot to cover. We were spread out all across the state, from Bellingham to Tri-Cities to everywhere in between. And we had a couple of state champions and some individual state champions and plenty of fantastic performances. So we are here to kind of give our reflections just on the weekend that was and talk about the exciting all-region award ceremony that's coming up on June 5th. We've had a lot of you reach out asking about tickets, and so we have some updates for that. We're coming into more focus just on how that event will be, and I think it's going to be a great night to celebrate high school sports. But Tim, let's start in Bellingham, where we had one of the more thrilling state championship games that I can remember, in Columbia River baseball defeating Enumclaw 3-2 with a seventh inning rally to win the program's first state championship since 1989.
Yeah, it was a crazy Saturday in which we had three local teams playing for state championships at 4:00 on Saturday in four different places. Camas soccer was playing in Puyallup, Seton Catholic softball was playing out in Richland, and then you were up in Bellingham for the Columbia River baseball team, and they were the only one to actually come away with a victory in a very exciting game. You got the prime assignment last week. You never really know who's actually going to win and take the title or whatever, and it came to you. So, you tell us about how the weekend was.
Well, I think we had talked going into the Final Four of the state baseball tournament that Columbia River doesn't really have to change what it does to compete in the final stages of a state tournament. They have great pitching. They play good defense. They have a ton of experience with 14 seniors, and it just so happened on these final 2 days they had clutch hitting. I think we got sort of a sneak peek in the semifinals where they went up against Linden, a very talented team, obviously, in the Final Four. And Stephen Donahue, the coach, decided to go with his senior, Zach Siebel, to go out there and do what he's kind of been doing over the course of the season, which is throw a lot of strikes, be extremely efficient on the mound. And well, he did exactly that, pitching a complete game on just 71 pitches in this case. The game flew by in an hour and 15 minutes, and Columbia River was able to make a couple of early runs stand up. And, I talked to Steven after that game, and he was kind of like, I don't know who it was, but I think someone gave Linden a scouting report on Zach Siebel, and that they knew he was going to be around the zone, and they attacked his pitches early in the count, sometimes swinging on the first, second, and third pitch. Well, that works if you're putting the ball in play hard for base hits and moving runners along, but most of the balls that were put in play were handled fairly routinely by the infielders, by the outfielders. I noticed a lot of balls to the outfield that certainly those rangy outfielders like Noah Larson and Charlie Palmersheim and right and center field respectively were able to track down. And so Columbia River basically stuck with its game plan, made those two runs hold up when Linden's starting pitcher really found his groove and only allowed one hit from the third inning on. And that ended up being sort of a sneak preview to the state championship game, where, again, great pitching by Noah Cokes. But in this case, Columbia River had to come from behind. Noah had a little bit of a hiccup in the first inning where he gave up 2 runs, and that was really his only rough inning. He shut down Enumclaw from then. Again, an Enumclaw team that entered having only lost 1 game all year, the number 1 seed. I think they kind of felt Enumclaw did, that they were the favorites. They had a pitcher with a ton of velocity, consistently in the low 90s. And I got the sense from how Enumclaw was playing its defense, shading to, away from the pull side, that they hadn't really faced a lot of teams that could handle that level of velocity throughout their season. Well, Columbia River, once they timed him up, was putting the ball in play, getting runners on base. They cut the lead to 2-1 in the third inning, had opportunities, but they were unable to cash in on them until we get to the seventh inning, top of the seventh. And I'm kind of thinking the narrative about this Columbia River team is that group of 14 seniors, so many of them were on that team 2 years ago that went to the state championship game in Yakima and lost a heartbreaker to Tumwater 1-0. Oh no, is this going to be the second state championship heartbreak in 3 years for this group? Well, they get a leadoff walk, they get a sacrifice bunt, get that tying runner to scoring position, and then you have Charlie Palmersheim. You take advantage of the breaks that you're given. Charlie Palmersheim swings on a low third strike that gets between the legs of the catcher, goes all the way to the backstop. So then you have runners on first and third with one out for the 3 and 4 hitters. Chris Parkin and Zane Boyes, the guys that have really been carrying that batting order all season. Chris Parkin comes up with a sharp single up the middle to score. Zach Zeeble tied the game. And then Zane Boyes hits a ground ball to right field. Stephen Donahue said he didn't know you can never, bank that you're going to get another chance to score a run, even if you don't have 2 outs. So he sends Charlie Palmersheim from second base on a ground ball to the right fielder who was playing sort of shallow. The throw beats Charlie by probably about 10 feet. But Charlie just makes an amazing slide, slides to the right-hand side of home plate, under and around the tag. He's reaching out with his left hand to swipe the plate as he goes by to score the go-ahead run. And at that point, I'm thinking there's no way that Columbia River is going to lose this. It just is looking like this is their year. And of course, Noah Cokes comes in, finishes the job, finishes a complete game, only 74 pitches to dust it off, and absolute jubilation from Columbia River. I've covered a few state championship games in all sports, but this was right up there with the amount of just pure joy that I saw from that team.
Well, they're a team that, they went to California in the spring, and then they played some tough teams. I think they, got shown where they're at and what they need to do and win. And I think these are the kind of games that we see at the state title level, the semifinals and finals. 2 years ago when River was a semifinal, I think they won a game 1-0 and then lost a game 1-0. And if you looked at some of the other games from the other classifications, you see a lot of these low scoring games, teams that play the pitch, teams that play defense. And those are the two things that River does well, and it played out well for them this weekend.
Well, and then I think Stephen Donahue reflected on that in that he said, we didn't ever in this tournament in the Final Four have to change what we do. Some teams come in and they're able to roll through their league play and their district tournament and basically outslug everybody and win games 10-6, 12-5, and not worry, we can just throw a pitcher up there who throws strikes, and doesn't matter if he gets hit around a little bit because we'll be able to, out hit the other team even more. Well, you can't do that in the state Final Four, because as we saw, they were going against the number 2 Enumclaw pitcher because their ace had thrown almost a perfect game the day before in the semifinals in a shutout win over Anacortes. Well, at that level, a team's number 2 pitcher might be hitting 94 on the radar gun like this guy was, or at least consistently hit 91 or 90. And so that's the level of pitching you are going to face at that stage of the tournament. It just so happened that Columbia River was completely comfortable playing a game where they'd only need 2 or 3 runs to win, because they knew their pitching, even though they don't have guys that throw in the low 90s, they're just around the zone. They mix up their speeds. They're not afraid to put the ball, have the other team put the ball in play, because they know that their defenders behind, out in the infield and the outfield are going to make the play. And that was exactly the formula for success for the Rapids.
Yeah, that is so huge at this level. I mean, I've seen teams through the playoffs, postseason, get derailed by walks. Get derailed by walks, or they get derailed by an error in the field or something like that. I think as a pitcher, you have to have confidence in your defense. You got to be able to be around the plate. I mean, obviously, both these pitchers, they threw 71 and 74 pitches, so you got to have confidence that the guys behind you are going to make those plays, and you got to be around the plate. And you got to challenge hitters to beat you. And I think like I said, during this postseason run of different playoff games, I saw a lot of teams get derailed by free passes or free bases, and limiting that is such a key part of winning baseball.
I think Columbia River only issued one walk the entire the entire 2 games up in Bellingham. They only had one error, and it was not on a play that was a batted ball into the field. It was a miscommunication between the pitcher and the first baseman about whether the first baseman was going to be covering on a pickoff attempt. It ended up not resulting in a run, so really an inconsequential error in hindsight. But yeah, just good fundamental baseball, clean baseball, exciting baseball, and that the games were fast and moving along and the ball was being put into play consistently. But yeah, when that third out was made in the bottom of the 7th and River comes storming out of the dugout, it was relief, it was joy, it was kind of the realization that it's not just that these 14 seniors, most of them had been playing together for Columbia River for a long time. It's that these kids had grown up from, T-ball playing on the same teams. They all know each other. They were kind of like, we have just the perfect ending to our high school career within our grasp, but we're also faced with the realization that we might not win because we're trailing head into the 7th inning. So for it to work out like that, and to get lifelong memories, to Chris Parkin, I believe, said they wanted to do it for Stephen. Stephen had 15 years coaching Columbia River, consistently taking them to the state playoffs, but never getting over that hump. Finally, to give Stephen, I know you've worked with Stephen before. He's one of the best coaches in the area from our perspective to work with. He's always very straightforward, doesn't show a lot of emotion, never gets up and down, very, describes the game in great detail. But I saw him allow himself about 15 to 20 seconds after that third out where he just let it go and just let the emotions come over him. And it's like, okay, put the hat back on, put the glasses back on, back to being the unflappable coach that led that team so well. But I think for anyone who's followed that program and seen kind of what they've gone through over the years to finally make it to the mountaintop, you can understand what a big thrill it is for those people.
Absolutely.
Well, let's move on to where you were, which was basically on almost the other side of the state, not quite, but in Southeast Washington in the Tri-Cities. You were at 4A and 1A softball and tennis. And let's start with 1A softball, because you got to see a team that kind of, I think, surprised us in Seton Catholic, that only in its 3rd year is now a state finalist.
Yeah, I think they surprised us. They surprised a lot of teams around the state. And I think that to a certain point, they surprised themselves about, how good they can actually be. The bracket turns out for the 1A, they have to play, I think the Seton Catholic was the 6th seed, which means they had to play on Thursday afternoon. And there was just no way, with everything that we were doing last week to get things ready for our all-region series and stuff, there was no way that I could get to Richland on Thursday afternoon. I got there, around 9 o'clock on Thursday night. So I was like, well, I sure hope Seton wins on Thursday, because then I can see him play on Friday. As it turned out, I got to see him play on Friday, on Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. Just a real fun bunch of kids to watch. They have fun and they support each other. They're young, and the times that shows up, then they're a little bit young. Some of the mental mistakes that comes with being young kind of show up here and there, but they fought through it. They beat Riverside in the quarterfinals on Friday, and a lot of people thought Riverside might be a team to watch because they had a very senior-led squad. Seton got up 5-0. Riverside chipped away at that, got within 5-4, but Seton got 1-2-3 in the in the 7th to win. And it was actually kind of funny because the third out was like a line drive to third base, and Zola Stevens snared it right off the dirt. And even she kind of like picked up when I was ready to throw, and everyone just kind of stood around for a minute. And then I even had to look over at the home plate umpire to see as his arm was up. It's like, yep, all right, that was an out. And then everyone celebrated. The semifinal game against Mount Baker, Kingsley Williams and Jocelyn Kender hit home runs early. They had a 6-run inning, and they ended up winning that 8-5, and they got to the title game against Royal, which for Seton Catholic, it always ends up against Royal.
Yeah.
Like I told Phil Kent, like, well, at least it's not 28 degrees this time, Royal was a very good team. They had a good pitcher, and they won that game 16-4. But Seton still was constantly cheering, constantly playing hard all the way to the very end. They've got a team that just has a lot of freshmen, sophomores, 2 8th graders on that team, and they got a bright future again for a program that just started 2 years ago. So the couple of seniors that they have were sophomores when this program got started, and they made it to the state championship game.
Yeah, great, cap to a great year overall for Seton Athletics. A Final Four football team, boys basketball team that makes it to the state tournament in Yakima, and then capped off with a softball team that makes it to the state finals. So again, great year 23-24 for the Seton Catholic Cougars. Now, I think when you had made your plans to go over to Richland for softball, that sort of the anticipation was a lot of your time would be spent with Skyview in the 4A tournament. Well, Skyview just kind of showed how tough that tournament is, and that they were knocked off in the quarterfinals, but did a really remarkable job of dusting themselves off and winning its way back through the loser out side of the bracket to claim third. It's their second top 3 finish in the last 3 years. So Skyview, even though they might not have met their ultimate goal of a state championship, I think it's something that they can take a lot of pride in, that there's a lot of teams that would kind of, after that tough quarterfinal loss, say, what are we even playing for? Well, they played for each other. They played for, their program and their pride, and end up with a pretty good finish in Richmond.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have seen it in a variety of different sports. A team goes into the state tournament, they're thinking, we're here to win a state championship. It doesn't work out, and then they just kind of like go, and they kind of mail it in from that point on. So, especially impressive the way Skyview came back, especially on Saturday. I think they outscored the opponents is like 37-6 or something like that, and I think 4 of the runs came in the 7th inning of a game that they were up like 9-1 or 7-1 or something like that. It was 9-1. So and particularly the way that they lost, it was so heartbreaking. They were up 5-2 in the bottom of the 7th. They had a runner on first, or Emerald Ridge had a runner on first, 2 out, and it really looked like one more out and they were moving on. Then it was single, a ball in the dirt, put runners at second and third. A wild pitch allowed the runner from third to score. Then they try to make a play on that runner at home. Ball gets away, tying run scores. And then now they're trying to reset their minds and get their heads back in. And I think it might even been like the very next pitch, hit out for a home run, and they end up losing 6-5, giving up 4 runs in the 7th. So. And it's not just that they lost, it's that they lost in such a heartbreak. And then they had to turn around and come back and play a battleground team that they faced before. And they won that, and then they must have got a good night's sleep and regrouped, because they did really great. I was, again, like I thought I was going to go there to see a championship game on Saturday. Thought it would be in the 4A and not the 1A. And it was very close that I would have been in a situation where I had a 1A state title game and a 4A state title game on a field across the way. I'm not even sure how I would have handled that, running back and forth. As it was, I was at the Seton Catholic game, and the Skyview game was the field next, so I can kind of peek down and look at the scoreboard and see how they were going, and pop over for a little bit as I could. But it was a busy, wild weekend. I was out at the softball. I was there at 9:00 in the morning, and the last game with the Battleground Skyview ended at 9:00 at night. but it was fun. And I think it's fun. It's a busy, long day, but at the end, it was a good experience.
Well, you haven't even talked about the tennis you hopped over to.
So that's how everything sort of kind of worked out. It's like, because originally I thought that if Skyview had won, they would play in the semifinals at 11 o'clock. And then it would have been like a very tight window to kind of, because I knew the tennis finals, singles and doubles, was over in Kennewick, which is probably about a less than 10-minute drive away, was going off at noon and 1:30, and I was thinking, that 11 o'clock, that's going to be tight. I'm just going to be able to maybe catch the end of it or something like that. But when Skyview lost and they were playing the loser out games, then my focus went to the 9 o'clock semifinal game for 1A. Seton Catholic won that, and then I left softball, went over to tennis. Originally, on the original schedule, it had the doubles going off at noon and then the singles at 1:30. And then for whatever reason, maybe the way the tournament went or when matches finished, they decided to flip it. And so they played the singles at noon and the doubles at 1:30. And of course, we had doubles from Camas girls and Camas boys both in the finals. And I was like, I really, really like that noon start. It would have given me a little bit more cushion before getting back to softball at 4 o'clock. But Tommy James and Aiden Brazier, they played a fairly quick match, and they earned a state champion as doubles. Something that was the plan when they made the plan back in the fall to play as doubles. They were both district champions in their own right as singles players the previous 2 years, and had been state placers the previous 2 years as singles players, and they probably could have been contenders for the singles state title this year, but decided to play doubles, and they really just dominated the field, both locally and up at the bi-district tournament at state. I don't know that they played a match where they dropped more than 2 or 3 games in a set at any time this year. So they were really impressive. And then on the girls' side, Haley Kirker in the singles, she was the defending state champion, lost in the semifinals, 3 sets. The third set went to a tiebreaker, and it was 8-6 in the tiebreaker. So real tough.
As close as a match can be.
As close as a match can get. I mean, she dropped the first set 6-1, rallied to take the second set 6-3, and then a very tight third set that ended up in the tiebreak. She goes off and plays a third place match and wins that to pick up third place. And then her sister and then Fiona Zoe, her sister Taryn Kirker and Fiona Zoe were playing in the doubles finals against Bellarmine Prep doubles, who played also last year, played as singles. They're sisters. They came together, kind of did the same thing that Tommy and Aiden did on the boys' side, came together, played doubles. They earned the state title. Taryn and Fiona were the runners-up, but the points scored with both with Haley and with the doubles teams allowed Camas to win the girls' state title as a team.
Yeah.
So,
congratulations, papermakers.
Another state title as a team. Kind of after watching the state tournament, I kind of wish that maybe Washington adopted what California does with state tennis. Is they have a state tournament like this where you have players playing a bracket and then you have an eventual winner. But then they have a state playoff that's dual matches. So you play dual matches
to really find out who the strongest team
is, and the whole team involved. If there was a way to make that work, I think that would be cool. I think that's sort of what sets high school tennis apart from club tennis, is the team aspect of it. I think the way it's set up right now, you can win a state title with a individual champion or a doubles champion or a singles champion, and then another entry who wins a couple of matches here or there. That wasn't the case at the 4A. We had the teams that won, both Camas girls and
Columbia River girls.
Well, I'm thinking of the boys. Who won the boys team? I think it was, can't even remember. It was Newport, maybe? Anyway, they had multiple entries. So, but still, you kind of like to feel, that if you can, the whole team could be involved in a tournament. That'd be cool. That's what I like to see.
Yeah, so the Papermakers, obviously, that's a good segue going from their success at the state tennis tournament to soccer, where for the first time since 2011, Camas boys are in the state title match. They come up short to a really a team in Mount Si that caught fire, wasn't seeded the highest, but you look at how many goals that team scored throughout the 4 matches that they played in the state tournament. You just were against a team that had a ton of momentum in the final. But I think a lot of the Papermakers will remember the semifinal win against top-seeded Pasco. They're down 2-0. They get one goal to kind of, get the momentum back, get the equalizer in stoppage time, and then go into the penalty kick shootout after overtime fails to solve anything. And they switch goalkeepers, put in a kid that hadn't played really all match, but in practice had shown just a knack for anticipating and guessing right on the penalty kicks. He gets in there. Camas does, their penalty kick takers do the job until I believe it was the 6th round where Pasco puts a kick off the crossbar to end it and send the Papermakers into the state championship match. I can't think of a more nerve-wracking scenario in sports than a penalty kick shootout.
Yeah, I was kind of following Will Denner's tweets on that, and it's so many times that you see the teams get to this penalty kick shootout, and sometimes they tend to miss, like in the quarterfinals, I think Royal and Seton Catholic were playing, and that PK went 3-1.
Yeah.
Which meant that, there were several misses, potentially from both teams. But this one, it was like, and this is the kind of like the previous year when Seton Catholic played, I think it was a third place match, they went to PKs, and it was like, who's going to miss first? I think that went like 7-6 or something like that. So to kind of rally your way back in the run of play and to get back into the match and then to fight and scratch and win and advance to PKs is, just an exciting moment for them. And I think, and it kind of continued a run that went like 15 matches or something like that in a row that they had won. And so I think maybe they were like, very similar to Mount Si in that, where they kind of caught fire towards the end and got to the title match, and it just didn't work out for them on Saturday.
Well, regardless of coming up in second place, just nothing to be ashamed of for Camas boys soccer. That program is back in a big way, so we can't wait to see how they use that experience to catapult themselves forward. And we'll end with track. Track, obviously, that's one of those events where every year we know we're going to have about a dozen athletes that we follow who are in contention for state titles, and this year was no different. It started with sort of, as we anticipated, the great shot put duel in the 3A between Juan Pacia Stanton of Mountain View and Will Foster of Prairie. This one goes to Will Foster. He's the state shot put champion after a narrow win over his good friend Juan Pacia Stanton. I know they were both celebrating each other, so that kind of set the tone for that weekend up there in Tacoma. I think Ethan Linerud of Camas also got a state title on Thursday, but then Friday was the Chase McGee show. Talk about pole vaulting excellence. The Camas junior clears 16-6, had that perfect moment that those of us who have been to a lot of track meets kind of we all stop when someone's going for a big attempt, whether it's the pole vault or the high jump, and everyone's kind of clapping in rhythm. And for him to go over 16-6 and then, narrowly fail 16-9, but to win that title, I just think is, that's what it's all about in high school track and field, to see that kind of excellence. So congratulations, Chase McGee, on a great state meet.
Yeah, that's always fun in the pole vault, or some of the events like the pole vault or the high jump, where they're different from some of the other field events where you get your set amount of attempts, and then whoever goes the farthest wins. In the pole vault, you just keep going higher until someone, and by the time Chase is going for 16-6, well, he's already won the state title, right? It's in the bag. Now it's just like, well, how far high can he go? Can he go? And so it was really great, cool to see him. He felt like, when he cleared 16-1 earlier this year, he thought, I think there's more there. And he showed that there was another 5 inches on top of that. And maybe he's still coming back a senior next year. Maybe 17 feet's in the range for him.
I wouldn't put any limits on him. That's for sure. He's broken all the preconceived limits that anyone would put on him so far. So, and that moves us to championship Saturday, and just, so many athletes I thought, had standout performances. There's the Evergreen long jumper setting a state record in winning that. There was, Columbia River boys tying for the state championship or the state team title, the first one in program history. Just what stood out to you about Saturday, do you think?
I think the thing that stood out to me was Revac Banfield and winning in the 100 and 200. I saw him at districts at Tumwater the week before, and he won the 100 and 200. But after he finished the 200, he was up on the trainer's table because he had a quadricep tendon that had been bothering him for a while. And really, when he came off the track after that, he really was having trouble moving around. And then they went and did the podium, and he got up and limped over to the podium, and then you kind of see it starting to loosen up. My concern going forward into the state meet is, unlike league and district where you just run the finals, you got to run a prelim for the 200, a prelim for the 100, and then the finals in the 100 and the finals in the 200, plus the relays, and you're just kind of wondering about how that kind of injury would keep from possibly acting up again. But he was able to get through and win those titles. And so I think that's the part that really impressed me.
Well, for the athletes, the competition is over. But for us, the state or the year in high school athletics is not over until June 5th. And that's where we're going to have our all-region awards ceremony. Again, Wednesday, June 5th. 6:30 p.m. Doors at 6 o'clock at the Kiggins Theater in downtown Vancouver. We're going to have a great keynote speaker and 4-time Olympian Kara Winger. But really, we've had a surge of interest as we kind of talk with our spring athletes about what this event is going to be. And what I can tell you is I think it's going to be basically a great celebration, a lot of mingling, a lot of just, we have a program where we'll have video clips of some of the standout performances from those athletes, and a little keepsake to give to the all-region athletes of the year in each sport that we're going to present. And I just think it's going to be a great celebration of the 23-24 season in high school athletics in Southwest Washington. Tim, what should people know about this event?
So, we're starting to hear from folks, so people who want to, so the athletes who are on the all-region team, any all-region team all the way through the school year, are encouraged to attend, and there's no charge for them. For friends and family, there's a fee to pay for a ticket, and a lot of people have been going to the site and trying to buy it, and it says it's sold out. So the reason we're getting sold out is that initially we reserved a very small portion of the available tickets to be open to be purchased for friends and family, because we want to make sure we have enough seats available for as many of the athletes who can attend as who can. And because the athletes who made it in the fall, they know way back in November or December that they're invited, and the winter athletes have known since about March. But the spring athletes are just finding out. We released 3 all-region teams, baseball, softball, and soccer. Last week we're doing boys and girls track and boys and girls tennis, and we did golf last week too. But boys and girls track, boys and girls tennis is coming out this week, and it's going to be released Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in the paper. We're actually notifying schools ahead of time. We're doing that today, letting them know, here's the kids from your school in the spring who are all-region athletes, and they are invited. And so we encourage you to get onto the sites and register, because as we move closer and closer to the date, we will start releasing more tickets for friends and families to purchase. So, again, we were talking earlier, it was, when we first launched this event, I came up with this idea, and we were trying to find a site months ago. Our event planner was like getting some big venues, and we were like, well, I don't know.
We didn't want an empty room.
We didn't want an empty room. As it turned out, those venues were difficult to pin down and get and find open a date. And we eventually found the Kiggins Theater, and said, it's a smaller venue, it's 300 seats, and we thought, yeah, that'll work. And now we're kind of wondering, like, we're going to have enough seats for everybody who wants to come. So we will be live streaming it on our 360 Preps YouTube channel. So if you're watching this, you can go here and watch the event live and later on. So if you can't get in, if if you wanted to go, that's an option for you. It's also an option for family members and friends who live far away. We are hearing from a lot of athletes who have been selected who won't be able to attend because of, high school end of the year events that are going on, different end of the year celebrations and ceremonies related to graduation. And we kind of knew that going in when we picked the date. But so if you get a notification from your athletic director, hopefully here in the next day or two, that let you know that you are a spring all-region athlete, please go on to that. There, I'll send along a link and get in there and register for yourself. So make sure you got your seats, because then we're going to open up tickets for the general public.
All right. Well, we hope to see you there at the Kiggins Theater, June 5th, Wednesday. I know it's a busy time for everybody, but it's been a busy month for a lot of us too, including the athletes that performed so well in the state championship weekend, the final weekend of the 23-24 season. It has been a thrill to follow all the sports from the first day of fall football practice through the winter, whether it be wrestling, basketball, all those sports that we try to keep track of all the way through the spring. It kind of never stops, but we are finally here at the very end of the season, and just nothing but congratulations for all the athletes that performed so well. And even if you didn't end up on a podium, we know there's a lot of you that had personal bests, that learned a lot of life lessons, that made friends that they'll be in touch with for most of the rest of their lives. And so again, that's the value of high school sports. That's why we do what we do, because we see the value in what that brings to our community. And so thank you to all of you who follow along and support those sports, who support the show. And, we can't wait to see what the future holds. But between now and June 5th, we're going to get to work to put on the best event that we can. So we will see you in the near future. Congratulations again to everybody, and thanks for following along.